Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and get us started because we have an exciting array of speakers for you this afternoon. My name is Rice Majors. I'm at the University of California, Davis, and I'm going to be talking to you about work we've done, excuse me, to center DEI in collections. So coming out of the pandemic, we decided to do a year-long strategic planning process, and in 2021, and we really wanted to center DEI as a through line for our strategic plan. This both was an instinct of ours coming out of the pandemic and seeing how the nature of the pandemic exacerbated some of the problems that we already had as a campus. It also was reinforced by things that we heard from our campus community across the board, from faculty, students, and others. We heard that they wanted us to improve on a number of dimensions of DEI. One of the 5 priorities that we have for our strategic plan centers on collections and how to bring DEI to bear on collections. I'm sorry, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I should unpack that for you. I'm going to use that as my phrase because that's what we use on campus. Importantly for me, the strategic plan calls for us to take bold actions and not assume that we need to have something already be proven to have worked at another library before we try it ourselves. And we're currently about halfway through our implementation phase, and I'm a part of that as well. And I carry with me this thing that our provost said when she was a candidate to be provost, is that really what we know right now is what hasn't worked, which is everything we've tried so far. Or to the extent that it can work, we've already tried it. And so really the cost benefit of being bold could be very high. So you can tell me how you think we're doing as I go through this. So one thing that we wanted to do was to be able to, and this is coming directly out of things we heard from our users, was to be able to engage with some of our underserved users. And in particular, one thing that we heard was that faculty who are not yet tenured don't have as much of a voice in collections, and that faculty who come from historically underestimated backgrounds may not feel as poised to have their voices heard in terms of shaping the collections and their services more broadly, but I'm talking about collections today. So one of the things that we're doing right now is a pilot program where we've invited 13 faculty who are on the tenure track and have been hired in the last few years to work with us and help us shape collections to support their research directly, potentially also their curriculum and clinical care, depending on where they are in the university. And this could have several positive outcomes that we're hoping for. So one is to obviously increase the support of these faculty with the idea that this might be able to become a program once we get out of our pilot phase, but help the library learn more quickly about the changing needs of faculty. And as the faculty aspires toward its level of diversity that it wants, whatever that is, that we're right in step with that. So the newest faculty ought to most accurately represent the aspirational diversity of the campus, and therefore that's who we should be listening to, and that actually tenured faculty have a lot of soft power on campus anyway to be able to tell us what they want. So we'll see how this is going. We've pledged to spend up to $15,000 per faculty member over a 3-year period to let them find a time in that 3 years when they want to work with us and tell us what they would like us to buy. And then we're planning to assess this pilot program with the collaboration of those faculty members and figure out how we can make this into a program, possibly with different numbers attached. We'll see how that goes. Another big area for us was increasing digitization and securing publishing and reuse rights. The pandemic really showed us that things being available digitally to users, free of cost to them. However, it doesn't have to be OA, but somehow the library's paid for it or the campus paid for it or whatever, really lifts all boats. And when we lift all boats, we really lift the boats that we're really wanting to lift here. We have been leveraging our Google Books partnership in some creative ways. So we have prioritized sending some languages, some topics, and some authorial voices in the Google Books program to be able to have that material digitized and therefore contributed to HathiTrust. So we're trying to put a finger on the scale of what's in the HathiTrust digital library and have that be more diverse. We're also currently working with 3 other research libraries to specifically lean in on a couple of topics with Google Books, so sending material on pollinators, bees and other pollinators, but also Puerto Rico as a topic, kind of writ large, as an exercise to see what it would take for libraries to cooperate on mass digitization and actually be intentional about what we contribute. And obviously, one of those topics will lean into the DEI theme that I have here today. Part of our normal work now is we have had active partnerships with Gail and Adam Matthew to have material digitized. I know that not everybody agrees on that as a strategy, but for us, it's been an excellent partnership where Gail or Adam Matthew will digitize some things that are in special collections and make them broadly available. There is an embargo period where they make the material available, but then it becomes available for us. So anything that we wouldn't get to during that embargo period anyway, 8 years in the case of Gail, lets us get that material digitized at almost no cost to us. They do all the rights research and everything, and in some cases, there's a lot of synergy between what they want to digitize and what would tick some DEI boxes in terms of content becoming increasingly available, which has been really great. We've also partnered with a couple of publishers to release their entire back catalogs. Wow, back catalogers. Whew. To digitize their entire back catalog and make it available under a CC license, a Creative Commons license, which then lets us unlock it in the HathiTrust Digital Library for all users. So one that I can talk about is the American Veterinary Medical Association. Their 2 flagship journals. They wanted help releasing the back catalog for free on the web to enable veterinarians around the world to be able to use that content. And they knew that UC had partnered with a lot of publishers on becoming open access, so they sought to work with us to make this available. So it's been really productive. And then UC has also been leading a 2-year Mellon-funded project called Project Lend that's looking at how we can expand the digital usage of especially mass digitized content. So I'll just keep picking on HathiTrust. What can we do legally with the HathiTrust Digital Library? And that's, again, making content available lifts all boats in some ways that really helps the people who have been historically underestimated. We also wanted to address our capacity for archival processing, and we were able to tie together a few threads here. So we have been leveraging donor funds to let us create some non-contingent roles. So we've agreed to self-fund them if we ever run out of money, but lets us recruit and mentor emerging professionals from these specific affinity groups that we're hoping. So we're trying to put a finger on what does the face of librarianship look like, who are the future librarians that are going to be working in archival work, and also tie that together with specific collections in our backlog that also let us especially even just with university archives, we have material from faculty members who are long retired and were kind of, they made important work in their areas in the time they were working for us, and they may, tick 1 or more boxes of various affinity groups, and it's letting us surface those collections while also working with a young professional to empower them to either keep working for us or go out and find a different job if that's what they want. But usually if people come to work for UC, they work for us forever because we still have a pension. And then we're planning to I'm going to be working with our development team on campus to try to articulate a compelling vision to fund these kind of the future of librarianship and really lean into, especially some of our student employees who are quite diverse and are often become interested in library work as they work for us, as that's exactly what happened to me, and really empower them to be able to go on and get jobs in areas like archival processing. We also wanted to partner both with our campus community and our broader community on archiving efforts. So there are some entities both on campus and in the community that don't want to transfer their assets to us for whatever reason. They want to continue to steward their own things. And so we're working to try to empower them to be able to do that to the best that they can with whatever resources they have. So we've been creating some online resources that let them approach things with whatever modicum of professionalism they can, but we're trying to at least create information resources for them, and have and also do this with campus entities. So there's some campus entities that do want to transfer university archives to us on a regular basis, but there's some that want to steward their own for whatever reason. And again, we want to empower them as much as possible, as well as extend our usage of Internet Archive's web archiving tools to which we have a paid account to be able to do that, to both to campus entities and off-campus entities that may appreciate that support. And UC Davis, we have the Ag School for the state of California, and we're the land grant institution. So we have an office in every county of California, and we have a couple of research centers in different parts of California because that's kind of who we are. So we're not a campus that's only in one city. So we want to extend our archiving to all the bits and bobs we have throughout the state of California. And this is the big one, the systemic issues in our collections. And I think this is the next talk is going to talk about this as well. So we want to identify and try to address systemic issues in our collections. And there's a lot of problems here, right? There's what librarians have purchased in the past and what approval plans have sent us. There's also who had access to publishing in the past and what voices are represented. And this is probably bigger than all of the other objectives in this priority together in terms of like the scope of the problem and the scope of effort that we need to do. So our first year was spent doing an environmental scan in terms of what have other libraries already done, what can we build upon, areas where we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And we found that generally speaking, we were already aware of what else was going on, fine. So we've now moved on to, we're on our second intern from library schools. So we're trying to, again, partner with early career folks and give them a step up that we've asked them to assess a specific slice of our collection and identify gaps and create a plan for us as to how we would address those gaps. And then the one who's working for us right now is looking at our music scores and is reaching out to some composers who have not gotten academic jobs and are not a professor of composition and therefore usually do not have access to formal publishing channels and have had to turn to self-publishing through a website or whatever, and they may or may not have an e-commerce solution where they sell things directly to consumers. And we're trying to partner with them so that we're capturing all of these folks that are currently locked out of formal publishing and have turned to self-publishing instead. So I'll be interested to see where this goes. You can see planned. I have 3 question marks. So this is, I think, the most, it's the thorniest problem to try to unpack. And I don't think we'll be done with this one at the end of the 5 years. And I would love to hear ideas from the audience, including the next presenters, about how to address this. I am going to turn things over to my colleagues and let them pick up with that one. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Malika Grant, and I'm a librarian in the humanities at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And I and my colleagues, Sunshine Carter, who is Director of Collection Strategy at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, and Amy Lana, who is Profile Manager at GOBI, are excited to share with you our work to increase diverse materials selected through our approval plans. And here is our familiar code of conduct. So to give you a little bit of background, in March 2020, George Floyd was murdered just about 2 miles from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. Thank you. And as you know, this had a big impact on the world, but the impact on our community was particularly heavy. And this moment motivated us to actively make changes to our work in several areas, including collection development. I'm sharing the introduction to the library's DEIA statement here because it reflects that commitment to equity, inclusion, and community-driven collections are core values. And in the summer of 2020, it became even more important to stand by these ideals, be more proactive, and invest money toward them. When you're trying to prioritize where your collections budget is being spent, being clear about your values is so important. This can really help you to identify the areas where investments are most critical to ensure that limited resources are allocated where they can have the most significant impact. So that summer, we established a racial equity and collections subgroup of our collections strategic steering committee, composed of collections staff from across many subject areas of the libraries. REIC is charged with advancing collection development methods and practices that will amplify diverse and marginalized voices with a focus on racial minorities, racism, and anti-racism within the United States. And from the beginning, this group was very focused on identifying practical ways to develop more inclusive collections. So next, I'm going to talk through some of the issues we had to work through in order to increase the diversity of our approval plan selections. So there's often a tension between prioritizing efficiency and fostering diversity within collections, because all of the systems we use to automate aspects of the work are impacted by structural racism. An efficiency-first approach can lead to collections dominated by mainstream or widely available materials, potentially sidelining lesser-known, culturally significant, or specialized resources that might have lower immediate demand. At the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, we first implemented approval plans in 2005. And over the years, we've made lots of adjustments. The idea of set it and forget it when it comes to approval plans has never really held true for us. There are always changes and tweaks and improvements you want to make. And for this particular project, we wanted to identify methods to prioritize diverse materials within our plans, which of course required close collaboration with our colleagues at GOBI. And these are some of the biggest challenges we had to work through. First of all, again, we have to acknowledge that systemic racism is in some ways intrinsic to library systems. Approval plans are based on data, and we just don't have all of the data we would want to have, in particular information on author identity. Of course, there are good reasons we don't have metadata on author identity, but it really makes it difficult to prioritize diversity when we're talking about underrepresented voices and points of view, and not the subject matter of the content. And Library of Congress and other subject headings have subject terms that are useful for identifying diversity in arts, humanities, social sciences, but not so much in the sciences. And our goal was really to work on this across all subject areas. And now I will turn over to Sunshine to talk through how we were able to use the data that we do have to increase diverse materials we are receiving through approval.
Thanks, Malika. So where we started with was working with GOBI, and we started really looking at their interdisciplinary subject that they apply to certain books within their offerings. And these are the list of the, I think this is the current list of interdisciplinary subject tags, as we call them. And so this list is are subjects that are applied to certain books that their reviewers believe would fall under one of these subject areas. So we started looking more closely at those tags and approached GOBI about an idea of having some kind of sister plan that would run alongside our approval plans and pick up books that we did not ship or book. For those, just for clarity, approval plans, you have a plan, books are selected, and you either are shipped a book or they call it booked. Or you get a slip and someone looks through those slips and can make a firm order. So what we wanted to do was to purchase more books automatically. And so the idea was in our heads that the second sister plan would kind of come along and pick out the books that were slipped that met certain criteria. And we were specifically looking at some of the interdisciplinary tags. So if it did find a book that we wanted to purchase, then we would purchase it. And if not, we would just leave it as a slip. So we started working with GOBI, and the first version was kind of created and implemented by GOBI, and we redid our plans in 2021. We had 68 approval plans, and we currently now have 14. So we really whittled down. And so during that process, we applied these sister plans to the new and improved and reduced approval plans. And so first off, we worked with our agriculture and biological sciences, and then we worked with our humanities, area studies, and social sciences. But we were wondering why weren't we actually buying any books? We bought one book, and we were very excited when that happened on the sister plan, but we were like, where are all the books? Like, where are they? And so I started corresponding with GOBI and asking, we're just not buying the books that we thought. And so I got on a Zoom call with Claudia Hackworth, and I was like, we just want to buy them. She's like, you mean you just want to buy them? And we're like, yes, book them. So she's like, got it. So like the next day, she's like, we didn't know you were serious. She's like, what happens if it just starts? I was like, we'll monitor it. So next day, I think we started seeing book purchases coming through on that. So we started in August of 2023, August 17th, and we were very happy. So this is what happened with our sister plan. Oh, fiscal year 222, that's a typo. So that year we purchased nothing. And then we have fiscal year 23, the one accidental book that somehow made it through. We're a little fighter. And then we ended up buying almost 100 books in fiscal year 24 and are currently have purchased already 62 books using our sister plan. This is just a random sampling of books that had been slipped on our regular 14 approval plans, more or less. And the sister plan came along and picked those up, and we bought them. So those books, we ended up buying 99 in fiscal year 24, and we bought 3,465 other books on approval from the big sister plan, I guess. And so we wanted to know, well, what's the usage like on these books that we're picking up with the sister plan? So we had 23% of the books, of those 99 books, were used between July 2023 and September of 2024. Compared with all our other approval books purchases, which only had about 17%. Almost 600 of those books were used. And so looking at the usage and how much we spent on that second to the bottom line, cost per use for the books that had use was exactly the same, $33 per book. And you can see how long those books have been on average on the shelf. Ebooks have been on the shelf, which I consider important to look at. How long have these books been sitting there? So the sister approval purchases have had a shorter shelf, been on the shelf for a shorter period of time. And this tells us that how much have we been buying of the total books that are tagged with interdisciplinary tags. So we have all of these fiscal years. GOBI gave us these figures, and you can see how many books were profiled with these DEI tags over the years, and how many we've been purchasing. The pandemic happened, and we really kind of turned off a lot of our print books, and so we did dip down a little bit, but we're bringing back up the percentage of books that we've purchased that have any kind of interdisciplinary tag. So I think I'll hand it over to Amy.
So from an operational side, this was very much a cooperative project. And so great credit goes to not only everyone at the library, but Claudia Hackworth, who was the collection development manager in charge of this project, and Heidi Korst, who is the head of our rule writing team up in Kentucky, New Hampshire. So the primary objective really in this project was not only to make this, this gap-filling collection, as Rice kind of alluded to, work, but not to mess with the primary approval plans. Sunshine mentioned that we had a very long and complex project to reduce the number of approval plans in existence, make them all work together. And so we did not want to mess with what we had done prior, because it was working and working quite well. We also wanted to continue to streamline workflows, because the last thing any one of us wants to do is create more work. This is very important that we did make the plans run automatically for the slips to be reduced so that the collection could just build itself. We also just wanted to make things run better. So this gap filling project was used targeted tags, as Sunshine mentioned. Out of that entire list that she showed, there are very specific tags for the plan, which, by the way, is an ebook only plan. It's not producing any print books. And in order to make this really run in the background, we had to make sure we did what we call coordination of plans. And that is a real key, because again, in addition to not wanting to create work, we don't want to create duplication. So in order to avoid book overlap, we painstakingly went through each plan, the two plans that have this component, this racial justice component to it, and made sure that we were filling the areas which were set to slip or excluded, and filling those gaps with the desired tags to send books. If you're at all familiar with approval plans, you can imagine the granularity involved here and the time, and that's why I say it's very much a coordinated effort, which is much appreciated behind the scenes. So in addition to avoiding the book overlap, we did need to fill in what's missing, and then there's an example below of how this is working in a plan. In physical geography, where there is slip coverage on the main plan, we are sending books for those desired tags on the racial justice plan. It is working well. We certainly expect to see more books come out this year than last, in part because of the shift in attitude toward producing content on and about these marginalized voices. So we think it's going to be a wonderful project. So thank you, and we're happy to take questions.